do what they need to play in a GOATS composition. But we also saw stuff like the Super McCree. There's still some room for things like a Widowmaker. But both teams going to start out the gate on a Winston GOATS.
And this is where, for Giant Esports, Mushroom actually played Flex Tank last season. Sage and God did as well. And with T1 now, they actually have 3 tanks on the team. This should be a very good comp for them. Bucks are already low.
SQXZ is going to be pulling out the Zarya here, often what the DPS players flex onto in GOATS, but Mushroom's taken some pain, able to get topped off as they look to wrap around on New Paradigm. But New Paradigm have just kind of handled the aggression, no one getting dangerously low. Pichu's the first casualty, and with that, Giant start to crumble. T2what, SQXZ, now Mushroom going to get picked off on the point. New Paradigm off to a dynamite start.
And after defending their Lucio player Bucks, so they're able to find a flank around the side, get Pichu really low, clean up that kill, and as we've seen in a lot of GOATS versus GOATS, the 3-3 versus 3-3, getting those early picks, snowballing them onto further picks, and now snowballing those ultimates becomes really important.
New Paradigm in a good spot. Giant's certainly not out of it. There is still a window before some of those ultimates become available. They need to get in quick, and they need to get a pick with those as well. T1 again taking a bit of hurt as the team starts to get into
ultimates
it.
Coming online.
Gets stunned up and taken out as these ultimates come into play for New Paradigm. This should be, again, a pretty clean fight win for New Paradigm, and indeed it is.
This is going to be a full team wipe as well. Some mid-air headshots from Ref there as New Paradigm collect their other 5 ultimates, or rather, other 4 ultimates here, as we did see that rally come through from Iron. The Graviton Surge nearly up for Unknown. XQXC still so far away, not even 50% yet.
That's the real tough thing for Giant here. They're just behind the 8 ball in terms of that ultimate economy. They should be able to turn things back around in a couple of fights, but that's a lot of time that's going to be lost now as New Paradigm get aggressive with the ultimates to back it up. Looking to throw in a grab. I think that is going to catch just enough members there. I thought it might have got eaten, but it didn't matter anyway. The kills come through. That's what counts for New Paradigm.
That was a Transcendence committed by Giant Esports as well. And you could see how much damage, the opening damage they were taking as they were getting in position. Half HP on XQXC and T1, as well as a couple of the members. New Paradigm then pull the trigger, get the Graviton Surge in there. Pichu throws out a Transcendence. It's a little bit too late. They've already lost half their team, and then Giant Esports collapse.
Now Giant, again, still a little bit behind the curve on those ultimates, but soon to come up on a grab. That's going to be something that's really going to split the fight. Yeah, nice to get the Transcendence out there. Tito wants to pop the Primal Rage. Pichu taking some hurt. They're going to use the sound barrier out. Doesn't catch T1, but he's busy keeping these members on the backline busy. Might find Iron, indeed, between him and Saiyan God. They get that one. Saiyan, I believe, was forced to self-destruct. Will be able to get back in the mech. Giant finally getting some kills through as they get onto the point. They are going to get a grab available, but I don't think they really need to use it. They've chosen, that's Unknown committing the grab here to try and rescue the fight, but a bit of a late commit with no follow-up. A New Paradigm throwing an ultimate at the point that's not really going to give them much as it goes to the way of Giant.
This is kind of the problem for New Paradigm because they had already used support ultimates. Buxo was close to the sound barrier, but not close enough. So for the grab to be effective from Unknown, you needed more members to be around. You needed all 6 for New Paradigm to really get on top of Giant Esports, who now have this Graviton Surge advantage. This is what could be propelling them to a further fight win, and then maybe contesting for that 100% later on.
That's what Giant really need if they want to even up this map, because it took them so long to get in possession of that point.
Ref's low again.
Trying to isolate Iron as well has paid off for them. Just splitting up these members of New Paradigm, divide and conquer. That's an ultimate, a Primal Rage out of Frost, but the team's already kind of behind in this fight. Sage and God did lose the mech though, but he's nearly back in it. They haven't actually closed out the kill. SQXZ getting buffeted on the point, can back up to his healers, still holding on to a grab, as meanwhile Giant have been able to clean up the backside of the fight. New Paradigm actually find themselves further behind.
This is when New Paradigm needed to try and get a few more ultimates, and they were just so close to those support ultimates. Ref was about 98%.
Giant just keeping the pressure on, getting some late picks as well.
Paradigm now, Unknown, looking to get back onto that grab, and this is where, for the Giant Esports, a couple more fights and they'll be into overtime at the 99% mark. They're about to hit 6 ultimates. They've managed to get nearly 70% while only expending very minimal ultimates so far.
They're in a pretty good spot here, but New Paradigm make a good rotation. Have to pop the Transcendence. Ref saving his life with that one, but that means that this grab, it's not going to be a good answer for it out of New Paradigm. They all get caught up in it. Sound barriers there.
5 commit.
Nicely done, nicely handled. No one dead just yet. Now the counter grab. Self-destruct from Tedo. Also not connecting, but Frost finds the first casualty of the fight. Giant have yet to answer back. Looking to get Unknown. Nearly closing him out, but not quite. Meanwhile, Pixie goes down, and Frost finds SQXZ. Giant not quite finishing off those kills that they were so close to collecting. And even though they approached 99%, New Paradigm win the fight. They'll flip the point back over, and they themselves are at 99%.
And this is where Giant Esports actually used all 6 ultimates that they had, and they lose the fight anyway. New Paradigm, the final Earth Shadow to come through. Mushroom knocked down and Giant knocked out of this opening stage of Ilios, and New Paradigm clutched it out 100 to 99. Now it was a good comeback for Giant Esports, but right at the end there, in a position where you'd expect them to be able to come through. 6 ults expended, no fight victory, no stage win.
When you consider how far ahead New Paradigm got, but then how well Giant were able to recover that, unfortunately coming down to that last fight where they were actually a bit favored. Again, it doesn't matter how good your setup is for a victory if you don't capitalize, if you don't convert on what you have laid down for yourself. New Paradigm, 1-0 up in the series now.
From them, because let's not forget Paradigm, after getting themselves to 99%, actually gave away a lot of fights in a row. Going into this next stage onto, well, it's going to be kind of a Super McCree coming out of Giant Esports, but with the Orisa.
The Orisa is a bit of an interesting addition to this here.
Works with the well, environmentals.
It does. It does make them a little bit more static, though, so that's the trade-off they make. It's Giant looking to just move around.
What better way to be static than to run Super McCree, because you got the shield bash and the flash bang, so if you want to come into us, you're going to get stunned.
Unfortunately, though, it's Sage and God who first gets stunned, loses the mech, and goes down for his trouble. And Giant, they've yet to actually collect the kill.
Oh!
Super McCree, Rocket! Rocket finds 2, that saves it. Nice environmental onto Tito. The environmentals are just too strong here. And despite the good start for New Paradigm and Giant not quite getting the capitalization on the McCree, they still win the fight off pure environmental kills.
Ref actually got himself 2 headshot kills while backing out here. Now for Giant Esports, Sage and God himself, the only one getting caught out on the rotation. If Giant just had the rotation a bit quicker, or if Sage and God managed to rotate with the team, that would have been 6 players still available for them. Now New Paradigm, chasing, didn't watch out for the boot from Rocket, didn't watch out for the Holt from Tito, and that cost him 3 members.
And it's so rough. The Holt was actually on Tito while he was trying to boost across the well. Didn't count on that running down.
Here we go again.
There's the boost though onto Tito. This time they had it and Frost had the jump, but Frost does not save his own life, and another environmental kill, I believe, went over there. I don't see anything on the kill feed though. Must have been able to get out of it off screen, but now SQXZ with the Deadeye forces New Paradigm off to the side. They shield up and they're going to be just fine, but Giant still ahead in this fight.
And look at the spacing here. Protecting the McCree is so important. So for Tito and the rest of Giant Esports, setting up somewhere, then using the sound barrier, well, not the sound barrier, but the speed boost to rotate around is going to be important.
Double rally out. Everyone's nice and healthy. Good connection on the grab, but no conversion. Supercharger is down. Mushroom able to get back out of that using the dash on the bash. Is Tito another environmental on him while he was out of the mech, and again Giant just 2 entrenched. Now they're really starting to hit their stride with this team composition.
You can actually see that Giant Esports back out beyond the, well, not beyond the range, but beyond the protection of the Supercharger. So the Supercharger was well ahead of the team. New Paradigm actually didn't target that at all, so they had this massively souped up damage boosted team on Giant Esports, able to defend their corner, got themselves another environmental kill on Potato, and eventually the Supercharger goes down, but New Paradigm already took too much damage.
Like I said, Giant have just hit a stride now. It's on New Paradigm to answer it, and they've just kind of been throwing themselves at a wall here. Haven't been able to get enough out of their ultimates, and haven't really had enough ultimates as it is.
Look at the rotations here from Giant Esports.
Oh,
that's a massive catch.
Huge one with that Deadeye available. They do get the environmental kill on Unknown, which keeps them a little bit competitive in the fight, and they pick off Ein. So New Paradigm, they're not in a good shape here. Ref and Frost too low, they go down. Another environmental kill from T1. Buxer, though, does trade one back, shows them how it's done, but honestly, Giant, they've actually got enough kills here. The sound barrier buys Tito some more seconds, but it's only seconds. Now it's just Buxer alone, stalling for his team so low, goes down. Members will trickle on, but with the Deadeye, they're zoned out. Ein looking for it, goes down with the combined efforts of XQXZ and Tito, and now Ilios is tied.
And that was one of the few good starts that New Paradigm could have hoped for, the best possible one, I want to say, because they got SQXZ down so quickly, the McCree player. He was the only major damage dealer on the Giant Esports side, so the rest of the Giant Esports, they have to be relying on those ultimates, they have to be relying on stalling, and for Tito, having putting that supercharger down once more, having that fortifying as well, staying and keeping his ground onto the point, allowing SQXC to get back into reinforce. That's what wins Giants next game, and for New Paradigm, unable to collect the rest of the kills on the tanks.
Super McCree looked, to say the least, super comfortable for Giant, but not really going to be too able to run the same thing here. Going to look to go back to a Winston Goat. Didn't quite pay off for them, but it was relatively competitive on Lighthouse. New Paradigm, though, this is a different thing, a shift in gear.
Our first tiebreaker on a control map on the opening map of the game so far for the season, by the way. Every other single one has gone to 2-0. That's going to be Iron coming through with the Doomfist, the Sombra Doomfist combo, which is so effective in this current meta.
Does need to actually connect, though. Does still need to hit the mark. Giants so far have just postured onto the point. Iron and Unknown looking for an angle in.
It's only 2 seconds now, before the point
Iron.
actually opens. Unknown super low.
Find Rocket, he's low, he gets picked out as well. Now Giant just trying to mitigate the damage, trying to find another way back in. Good stun, but Einder's going to be fine. The follow-up damage wasn't there. It just kind of saves Mushroom's skin for a second, and Giant have had to back off here, losing some members on the retreat as well.
You can see the HP bars, Giant Esports still very low in 3 members. SQXC was on half as well. New Paradigm just picks them off. Unknown was low for the longest amount of time, but it was Giant Esports losing ground. Iron consistently pressuring around the sides as well, now working up towards their first ultimate.
Giant, speaking of ultimates, are very reliant on their own ultimates becoming available. Oh, early pick on Mushroom.
Ref is huge.
So rough, and Giant, it's going to make it very hard for them to charge up those ultimates, and this is the fight win for New Paradigm to just barely get into those ultimates that they so sorely need. Need to be careful though, Ref goes down, chose to not pop the Transcendence. This gives Giant a window.
Now, this is when New Paradigm might have to back off completely. I don't expect them to be trying to use too many ultimates here. They need to regroup as 6, make sure they can get that EMP into play, because that's how they're going to win.
This is a really tight spot here. Decent EMP, but follow-up, they get a Rocket Punch on Mushroom, that's something, but now the more impactful ultimates can come out from Giant. It's going to be hard though, and Pichu's dead, and despite these ultimates available, they're only just throwing them out, and Ref is back to counter it out with the Transcendence. Giant, they missed their window, and they're paying for it dearly. New Paradigm, they're going to be able to take this fight. Giant did at least get the cap in the middle of that, but New Paradigm ahead in the fight, and will get the point back under their control.
You have to see how New Paradigm actually split off Giant Esports. They had 2 environmental kills, one coming from Iron straight away with the Rocket Punch, and they're not done yet. Ref picks himself too. The Zenyatta players actually been doing so much work. Might have reminded you on well, while they were losing, New Paradigm backing off. Ref gets double headshot kills, so right now for New Paradigm, they're coming out massively ahead. Not hugely in the progress department. Giant Esports has 24, but New Paradigm, they have control of the point, and they still have so much deadly firepower.
They have control of the pace of the match as well. Giant are constantly on the back foot, but with the early pick on Ainz, this is now a shift in momentum. Giant can get aggressive. Unknown, still looking for an angle in with an EMP. Good catch on Tito, though. Mushroom getting the stun, and Tito getting the follow-up damage. And this is where Giant, even though they didn't the ultimates, they actually got the kills. That's not usually the win condition, but because they did that, they can start rotating into ultimates soon.
This is where the timing was a little bit off for New Paradigm. Iron didn't quite have the meteor strike in just yet. He dives and possibly gets stunned up, instantly melted. Unable to be saved by the rest of his team, but they managed to save all the ultimates, whereas Giant Esports did have to expend. And for New Paradigm now, winning one more fight will push them towards that 99% and perhaps cap out the whole map.
This is going to be an important one for Giant to win, but it's going to be a hard one for them to win just with the ultimates. Unknown looking for an EMP. Oh no, goes down. That's so rough. That's the power of that stun though, and that goats, but the point does go the way of New Paradigm. Giant looking to find a way to fight back in. They are paying good respect to the ultimates on New Paradigm. Rocket goes down to the Meteor Strike on the back side of the fight. Transcendence out now from Pichu as they look to get aggressive. Ref again! Stunned up, goes down. He did have a Transcendence, now not available in this fight. Baxter has to use the sound barrier as the EMP comes out. But Giant, they're not out of this just yet. It's taking a long time to lose these members. The unfortunate thing, though, is they did lose control of the point. This could have been good for them. They could have been in a situation where they lose, but they have another shot. This time around, though, they will not, unless this self-destruct is miraculous.
And
it is not 99%. Now, last few members of Giant looking to go down here once they lose T to watch.
We're just waiting to see if maybe XQZ can grab or something because they got nothing left in the tank.
Not able to get onto the point. And that is the danger of losing a point mid-fight. Like I said, if that hadn't been the case, there was still time for one more fight after this. Unfortunately for Giant Esports, they didn't have that one more fight. They didn't have that extra time. which means they weren't going to be able to get that next ult rotation that could have pushed them to 99%, could have maybe had them win that one out. It's unfortunate, but them's the breaks. It's a game of inches.
And I think there's a scenario where New Paradigm was ahead anyway. If they didn't cap that point out, it would have probably have stalled over to one extra fight. But for New Paradigm, able to sneak that one through, able to maintain control and still win that fight and being ahead despite losing members at inopportune times. I credit Refs for his ability to frag out on the Zenyatta, but also at the same time dying, unfortunately, with the Transcendence, probably when he should have popped.
A little unfortunate. I mean, you can't pop when you're stunned, but there's a point at which you're facing down a Brigitte and you're a little bit low and you are in the thick of a fight. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad idea to do that, especially when you know you're in head and ultimates, and if you win this fight, you'll get possession of the point, could just close out the map, which is luckily what ended up happening. But at any rate, the decision-making a little bit troublesome there. I would actually take the other side of that and credit Mushroom, because that was twice in the same fight. He got a shield bashed stun, and then was able to finish off a kill. First it was on the Sombra, then it was on the Zenyatta while they had ultimates.
And I got a credit on the other side, Ironed on the Doomfist, because despite those kind of deaths happening for his own team, he's able to make counter trades on that Doomfist so effectively, so kind of nullifying the Fixer losing his teammates. You might have lost the Transcendence for now, but then getting yourself 2 kills a little bit later on and being able to push that momentum towards the other team, well, offensively towards the other team, and sort of evening things up a little bit and then gaining advantage in terms of players. I mean, that's kind of what he's been able to do. Uses the Meteor Strike, gets himself another kill. A lot of those things happening time and time again is what gives him the victory. The only time it really backfired on him was when he dived in, got stunned out, instantly died, and that was when New Paradigm had to back off.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the only one, right? And aside from that, they were able to win fights relatively consistently. What we do have, though, again, is a situation where I've got to say it feels like these two teams are very even. It's going to be a close run thing, but sometimes Control can just be like that. The real test, the real model of meta here, I feel, is going to be how they move in onto Hybrid. We've so far seen teams tied up exactly 1-for-1 apiece every single time by the end of Hybrid. May see the same thing here, as the pick for Giant Esports is going to be Hollywood.
I think this is the change of tune. We've already had a change of tune, in considering first Control map to actually go to a tiebreaker at the 3rd stage. The other ones actually ended up, I'm talking about the very opening Control map here, the other ones ended up on 0-2 every single time.
At any rate, this is also our first time not just going to Numbani, so it's going to be a bit of a refreshing change of pace. We may just see this as the first series where it's a 2-0 instead of a 1-for-1.
I think we're at that stage of the game now.
Maybe. And New Paradigm are looking good, but of course this is Giants' pick, so you'd like to think that they've got something that they've prepared for this. This is also somewhere I would expect to see a bunker composition, especially on that A defense. You've got a lot of things you can play on that streets phase. We could see that Super McCree that was working very well for Giant on Ilios I think they've got a lot of options on the defense here.
Well, you look at the Giant Esports as well, even without the environmental kills onto Wealth, they are running an Orisa-based composition defensively on that first point. You could definitely see that working quite decently for them again, but I want to go over to the New Paradigm side, because I think in combination with both Doomfist and Sombra, or even some other picks on their side, getting into the attacking phase could be very interesting. I want to say defensive Doomfist is also quite strong on that first point.
Again, just been so long since we went to Hollywood. At least it feels that way. It's always in our hearts and minds, though. New Paradigm on the defense first. This is a bit of an interesting strategy.
It's got to be the Orisa bunker with a McCree as central DPS, and then also backed up by the pharmacy in the sky. So just getting a little bit of insurance policy in terms of the actual damage there. If there is going to be a ghost composition coming out, which this kind of is, but it's basically a Super McCree with the Rhine, you can see the effect of the fire should be quite big.
Good rotation though so far by Giant.
Counter rotation.
Moving around the side. They've actually chosen to attack first here, by the way, so they now possess the high ground and just kind of forced New Paradigm back. They have to now shift gears, get onto this opposing high ground. And Giant, they've got a Super McCree of their own, so this isn't uncomfortable for them. This is actually a decent position. Going to get this first third over, even as they lose Mushroom.
This is where Iron can really work his magic, because Unknown is the other damage option. He's actually getting himself another kill onto XQXC. That should be the end of the push now for Giant.
Yeah, even though Unknown does end up going down. Actually a late kill onto Ref, but Iron is still in the mix here, while Giant actually don't have any DPSs. SQXC is the closer respawn though, so Giant, if they're quick about this, can come back in nice and quickly.
Now, New Paradigm have to play their composition slightly differently, because it's not really Super McCree. They have a Pharmacy, which the Mercy has to put a lot of resource into the Pharah, which means the McCree doesn't get as much resource from the rest of the team. That's the difference between what Giant's running and what New Paradigm is running. No ticks were right. I like one tick did come through for Giant, so now they can work on that high ground again.
Giant can just do this. Oh, that is gross. An absolutely diabolical angle. No fight to happen here. Giant just have to accept this is done. Let's try again later.
Now, the 3 members that actually made it through are going to have to reset themselves anyway. I'm not too sure where Mushroom is at the moment. Hopefully he got himself away, but the rest of Giant Esports just have to regroup now, losing a decent amount of time. Nearly half that attacking time is gone, reaching around that 2-minute mark. New Paradigm coming back up on some ults.
This is a bit of a tight spot for Giant. They've had a couple of unsuccessful fights. They did get that 1/3, but no ultimates to speak of. Still relying on out-fragging. That is a great concussive blast, but no follow-up kills just yet.
It does a lot of damage. Look at the HP bars of Giant right now. As New Paradigm are about to now rotate through. 45% on the ult charge despite just using a rocket barrage. 3 coming up to 5 ults for New Paradigm. Giant, they're still on catch-up.
And their ultimates are a lot harder to successfully land here, Giants. It's going to be the Deadeye out of Unknown. Oh, manages to find SQXZ through that Rhine shield. That's unfortunate for T1. That really takes the wind out of the sails for Giant. They're so reliant on that 1 DPS. At least New Paradigm can fall back on the Pharah.
And 5 members now, Giant Esports caught out of position. They have to wait for their member to respawn and rejoin them, but that's so hard to do. Where are these guys going to go now? They've actually transcended to just rotate through.
Yeah, they have to use that one just to stay safe, but it pays off. They actually find Ein. That's a bit of an unfortunate position for him to be caught out in. They res him, and I think rightfully so. Nice flashbang headshot onto Rocket as well. Even though SQXZ is finally back in this fight, the reality is New Paradigm is still in the driver's seat. Deadeye from SQXZ, sorely punished as he's out in the open. Unknown finds him with the Peacemaker, and now a late kill onto T1. New Paradigm putting Giants in an even worse spot than before.
Unknown had a huge string of kills there, defeats the Deadeye with just his regular pistols. And for New Paradigm, look at that, 45 seconds remaining on this defense, coming up to another Deadeye. Giant Esports, they had some decent ults coming online. Do they spend those? A couple changes now as well. And for Rocket, the sound barrier coming through with the rally, it's all about the HP. They have to survive, but there's still a fire in the sky.
It's going to be so hard to deal with. At least there isn't that barrage. This time it's Deadeye from Unknown. Doesn't find anything, just damage on T1's shield. Takes a bit of hurt himself, but they find T1 does not get saved by Rocket's sound barrier. Now Giant, they can't decide whether they want to aggress or regroup and fall back. Pichu's taken hurt because of it. Saiyajin God, though, finds Irons in the skies. And now Giant have an opportunity here as SQXZ is finally unlocked for the first time. Unknown, though, finds him. That's 3 for 3 out of Unknown. And that's the power of the damage beam and the nano boost onto him. One body shot finishes off the other McCree. Saiyajin God does demech Tito, but Unknown, ooh, great headshot from Pichu. Giant are not done with this yet. Earth Shatter from T1 gets a good connection, and they finish off Buxa. No more reses. They're scrapping this one out. Frost and Tito, they want to fight to the last here, and they are still getting kills. Pichu does not save T1, but he does save SQXZ, who really has to make work.
That's the Transcendence that's keeping Giant alive right now into the Deadeye from
Deadeye, no!
Instantly shut down.
From behind as well, the extra damage, and Frost gets the last shot. SQXZ was not safe, stood there, and Giant do not have any more members. They so nearly rescued that fight, but I actually think SQXZ stopping to channel the Deadeye, rather than just keeping up the left clicks, really cost them right at the end there.
It was a Hail Mary play. They were behind anyway. There were so many more New Paradigm members reinforcing right back onto that cut. You could see Iron coming through very quickly. And I want to note the 2 DPS there, Unknown and Iron, kind of just tag teaming their way through. Iron went down quite quickly, or reasonably quickly as the fire there, but Unknown stood his ground as that McCree, beating SQXZ multiple times, taking up other kills as well, forcing Pichu to run away and take cover. And for Giant Esports, unable to really aggress onto him. Finally, Saiyajin God as a diva player, knocks him onto the low ground, takes him out, and for New Paradigm, that's where the tag teaming comes in. Iron says, I'm in now, I'm the Doomfist, and he takes control of the game.
Now Giant on the defense. They really have a lot to prove here. They did not get much progress on that 56.1%. They could still full hold, certainly is possible. But Pretty narrow margin, all things considered.
This is where the change of tune really comes in. Like we've previously mentioned, it's been 1-1 after 2 maps, every single match, right until potentially this point, and this is now super winnable for New Paradigm. They just got to get 56.1, and they'll be 2-0 up ahead.
And really, might be looking like new roster, same old Paradigm, because this is the roster that came out of Trials in first place, or at least the team, rather. Adjustments to the roster, but you barely notice it with how cleanly they've been playing, and this could be them.
Better yet, it's New Paradigm, because based on last season's results, they don't want to be old Paradigm anymore.
Yeah.
This time around, it's kind of dive here. It's the Tracer Sombra dive that we've talked about before we get into the matches.
Yeah,
against the Goats composition, the Winston Goats on Giant.
As the thing, speaking of new paradigms, showing that they've got another team composition that they can play, another variation in the back pocket. Really seeing a lot of flexibility out of this team. New paradigm, as it were.
Just finding space here, knowing that they have time to play with, knowing that they have the space to work with. Tino was low. This could be the opening.
Does get healed back up, but even as he tries to retreat, they keep the pressure on. Ain's down to 14 health, but secures that one. And that's the opening New Paradigm have been needing. Baxter taxis these members who were regrouping back in as they've been topped off. Just looking for the entry to find the next few members here. Frost is low. They need to be careful with how they handle this dive because Ein gets picked off. They do trade with SQXZ, so they still have a numbers advantage. So far, New Paradigm trading well. And
there's always a tank member down for Giant Esports so far. They need to be able to manage to get those trades back in. Tedo going down could be those trades that they're looking for.
But again, speaking of trades, Saiyajin God loses mech. They find Frost, though. That's good. EMP, it's not the greatest here in New Paradigm. I think this time are just going to have to start backing off, especially losing Ein here. And Pichu popping the Transcendence to ensure that his team is unkillable for those few seconds. New Paradigm have to reset.
That was the one ult that New Paradigm are going to get out of Giant Esports. It's a pretty decent ult. At the end of the day, New Paradigm were backing out anyway. The Transcendence, there is a world where it could have been kept, but right now for Giant Esports, they're coming online with those other ultimates for New Paradigm, changing the pace a little bit here. So Unknown probably going to change to the Zarya. Looks like Goats on both sides.
New Paradigm, a little bit behind the 8 ball for the time being. Giants
got one tick though.
Yeah, they got that at least, but Giant can just start to cycle through some ultimates here. Tools they have at their disposal. We'll get that grab before Unknown does as well, unless something goes horribly wrong. New Paradigm looking for an angle in. Giant have more mobility here. They can contest that high ground. They get the Transcendence out of Ref. It's a decent start for them. Members low and Ein goes down. Giant off to a decent start here now. Frost buffeting Mushroom around, but meanwhile in the rest of the fight, New Paradigm are getting low. Frost ends up surrounded and goes down despite finishing off Mushroom, and Baxter as well meets with a terrible fate. Now the late kill on Ref. They don't quite get Tito's mech, but Giant happy to take this fight as it stands.
This is where New Paradigm are looking to fish for ultimates out of Giant Esports. They got themselves out the sound barrier, but now they're going to have to deal with both Primal Rage and a Transcendence, and then soon to be a Graviton Surge as well. At least Unknown is going to be able to match that out. The one tick is going to be very important because if they get any advantage, they can cap through. If they cap, they win the game, and that's what they can do once they get their own ults.
And that's going to be a grab to come straight out from SQXZ. Pichu commits himself for Transcendence to deal with Unknown's grab. Earthshatter does not get what they're looking for out of Frost.
That one did.
Still find Saiyajin God as he was out of the mech, trying to channel a self-destruct that went wide. Mushroom trades one back, but Tito down. Tank line bleeding for Giants. New Paradigm, plenty of members on the point. Ref does go down, though. SQXZ, not done yet. They do still have Saiyajin God coming back in, but the critical mass of members is there for New Paradigm on the point. Rocket not able to contest. Pichu definitely not going to be able to contest, and that's going to be the game going the way of New Paradigm. And for the first time, we are going to be going into our break with a team 2-0 up.
And this is a really, really fantastic start. Obviously, a 2-0 is a dominant beginning to any series. It's now going to force Giant Esports to make some sort of reverse sweep to get anything back in here if they want a chance to win, which means they have to force that map number 5. But based off the first 2 maps so far, what we can see out of New Paradigm, I think they're looking very favored.
They really, really are. That's the thing. At the end of the day, they are just looking like the better of these two teams. Even when it's coming close, they are consistently coming out on top. And it is fair to say that Hollywood was actually quite close. It came down to just a little bit under a minute when that victorious fight came through for New Paradigm. If they'd lost that, then they would have been diving back for the points. They would have at least had that extra fight, but There's a chance that they actually couldn't have got that and Giant would have taken it, tied it up, and that's to say nothing of Ilios being a relatively close map as well.
I think it was close in the vacuum of only Hollywood A, but in the holistically the entire map, it's not close at all, considering that it was a completed full hold for New Paradigm there. But looking at just that A point in that A defense and offense from both sides, I think there was definitely opportunity for Giant Esports. There was definitely a time where when you look at the New Paradigm side and you say, oh, they're going to have to go for a full team comp swap here, they're severely behind in ultimates, this is where Giant Esports can really run away with the game. That opportunity presented itself very briefly and then went away equally as fast.
And it's the same thing on the offense, really. Opportunity was presented, but they never actually got that full cap. That's why they were in such a tight spot on the defense, and again, they weren't able to make that one work for them either.
Yeah, but it is only one half of the series so far, which means in the second half, more opportunities will present themselves, at least in 2 more maps for this series between Giant Esports and New Paradigm. Find out what happens to both teams and who's going to come out on top right after this break.